I mean, you probably want to fail on having over on because you don't want to miss, but if you're just sitting back, you might want to turn it off.
So just so everyone knows, we're going to wait a couple minutes. Our city clerk had to go grab some documents, and so we're going to give her a couple minutes to get up here. So thank you. It is 7:03. I'll call the meeting to order. Would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Jeff Elshoff.
Here.
Dr. Joel Schroeder.
Here.
Ms. Diane Wynn.
Here.
Mr. Justin Smith.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Thank you. This evening we have Pastor Gary Green from Gospel Assembly Church here to lead us in prayer. Pastor Green.
Thank you for having me. It's always a privilege to be here with you. All right, let's pray. Let's bow our heads, please. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we pause now to acknowledge you as author of life, the author of all good things, and the provider of our many blessings. We give you thanks for this community and the many resources you've blessed our community with. We give you thanks for the leaders you've chosen to sit on this council and serve, and for our mayor to lead. We pray for their health, their strength, and their wisdom. And now we ask your continued blessings on our community. to be good stewards of all you've provided, to overcome every obstacle that may come. We ask for wisdom and humility to serve honestly. May you bless our community now as we endeavor to lead it into the future, a future we pray for safety, prosperity, equality for all of our citizens. We ask these blessings in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. And for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Determine agenda additions. Does manager have any agenda additions? Thank you. Any other agenda additions? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. It contains the minutes of February 18th council meeting. In addition, we have 2 applications for fireworks sales permits. City codes allows up to 4 permits annually, and these will be number 1 and number 2 for the year 2020. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question
Certainly.
regarding one of the fireworks licensing. I noticed that the insured was actually the wholesaler and not the actual fireworks stand operator, from what I read. Maybe I misunderstood something. This would be the one for, says Sunshine Christian Academy here. I believe that's probably Sunrise Christian Academy. They usually have a fireworks stand, but the insurance is required, and that's from the state and everything, and it has all kinds of ins and outs that you want to make sure they're correct.
So, City Attorney, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah.
I'm a little bit lost on that particular technicality.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Nguyen is correct. We do require, the ordinance requires people who apply for these permits to have insurance, and they are the insured, and the city's the additional insured. In this case, that's kind of hard to pick up on because it's way down in the bottom, below section C. That following section goes, the last sentence in the following section says additional insured, and it includes the city of Bel Aire.
Oh, it does say City of Bel Aire and Sunshine Christian Academy, but it should be Sunrise, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, that's a typo in the application.
Is that a technicality we need corrected?
I spoke with the clerk, and the permit will be issued to the correct location. The applicant may have misspelled it there, but we won't transfer the typo over. So, not something we'd have to correct, but.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the explanation. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as listed and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second?
First and second, any more discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll, or not a roll call vote, but all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. Discussion and approval of appropriations ordinance. Oh, that's different. Okay, yeah. And this ordinance is fairly typical for basic operating expenses. That's $319,000. So do we have any discussion or a motion on this?
Mr. Mayor, I motion to approve the appropriation ordinance 2004.
I'll second.
The first and second, I'll call for a vote unless there's discussion. I don't want to call it off discussion. Okay. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. City requested appearances, we have none. We do have 2 proclamations to discuss or to present. So the first one is the Severe Weather Awareness Week of 2020. To the citizens of Bel Aire, Kansas, greetings. Whereas Severe Weather Awareness Week is March 2nd through the 6th, 2020, and whereas Kansas has experienced more federally declared disasters in recent years than any other state in the nation, and whereas each year brings the potential for violent weather to Kansas, and whereas large portions of our state, including the city of Bel Aire, can be devastated by flooding, tornadoes, hail, windstorms, and other potentially dangerous events, and whereas the Governor's Division of Emergency Management, the National Weather Service, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMEA or FEMA, have joined together urging all citizens to prepare for severe weather and to educate themselves on safety strategies. And whereas Governor Laura Kelly has declared the week of March 2nd through the 6th, 2020 as Severe Weather Awareness Week in Kansas. Therefore, in official recognition of this statewide event, I, Jim Benage, Mayor of the City of Bel Aire, do hereby proclaim March 2nd through the 6th, 2020 Severe Weather Awareness Week in Bel Aire. Sign it. If you pass that to the City Clerk, please. The second proclamation is Flood Awareness Week to the citizens March 18th through the 22nd, 2020. So, to the citizens of Bel Aire, Kansas, greetings. Whereas Flood Awareness Week is an opportunity to raise awareness about the importance of preparing for and understanding flooding in Kansas, and to encourage all citizens to better prepare their homes, businesses, and communities for the upcoming flood season. And whereas the Kansas Hazard Mitigation Plan identifies flooding as the costliest type of natural disaster in Kansas in terms of lives lost, injuries, and property damage. And whereas floods threaten people, homes, and other property in even every county in Kansas. And whereas floods can happen anytime, anywhere, and without warning. And whereas damage from a flood is not normally covered under standard homeowners policies. And whereas this spring will bring a seasonal rainfall, which can bring the potential for flooding. And whereas National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's National Weather Service will initiate Severe Weather Awareness Week on March 18th. Therefore, I, Jim Benage, do hereby proclaim March 18th through the 22nd, 2020 as Flood Awareness Week in the City of Bel Aire, and call upon all citizens to recognize this observation. Pass that to City Clerk, please. So citizens' concerns, I have a couple of cards where citizens have requested to speak to address council, so I will call Mr. Gary O'Neill.
Thank you, Mayor, governing body. My name is Gary O'Neill. I live at 4967 North Hillcrest here in Bel Aire. This evening, I was watching the news before I came to the meeting, and I saw where Wichita had voted $50 million worth of bonds today for a facility to go in the Webb Industrial Park right on North Webb here, 40th and North Webb, right across the street from the Aviation Training Center. That is within a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile of our industrial park. I was wanting to know if we knew about that. We asked to maybe bid for that project. Do we hear anything about it, Mr. Lasher? Do you know?
This is the first I've heard about it.
Okay, first you've heard about it. Also, in that same property about a year ago, West Star built a facility over there. They moved some of the yard off the 9th Street downtown, moved out the same property. And we were told at that time also that Bel Aire didn't know anything about it. Again, it's within a half a mile of our industrial park. And I was led to believe that they paid a 75% premium per square foot for the land at the Webb Industrial Park for what they could have been in our industrial park. There is a disconnect somewhere in this region with people that have industrial parks and facilities that we're not getting clued in on. And I know that this Thursday you have a workshop interviewing 4 people to market our industrial property. I think a good question for each one of those interviewees would be, if we are not getting those, even, getting any response from them or even being asked, do you have anything? Why not? And can they tell us why are we not? And then that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good point. Thank you very much. I appreciate the input.
I don't know if it's gonna, I have a question for Ty related to that. Ty, it would normally not be your position to find those. That's theoretically supposed to be our broker is finding those. Is that correct? I know you have done it for us.
Right.
But we do employ a broker to be finding those, and we're not sure why he has not. Am I
Right.
understanding how that would work correctly?
Exactly. There are some situations where they'll call me directly, and then there's other situations where some broker is representing a company, and they'll contract or contact other brokers to see if there's places available. So, yep.
Okay, I also have Ms. Carolyn Guzzelman. Am I saying your name properly? Guzzelman, thank you.
Carolyn Gutzelman at 5029 East 39th Street North, and I just wanted to address the council today. I know that you're going to be discussing filling your empty seat. I have emailed you guys regarding that, and I just hope to remind you the will of the people, and it should be a really simple procedure for you to see who might be that person that the city would like to have in that place. I supported Mr. Welch for his run for council because I had an opportunity to hear what his thoughts were on different positions that affect this city. The rest of the candidates that are up for consideration, I haven't had that opportunity. And so I feel like if you cannot appoint someone that the citizens have had the opportunity to hear their positions, then maybe we need to have a special election so that that opportunity is seen available for us.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens that would like to speak? I see we have quite a group here. Is this Mr. Bill Cook in the back here? Mr. Cook.
Good evening. Bill Cook, 4618 North Elk Creek. I am also wanting to speak on the empty seat, and only because it just seems so obvious to me. And I think you said it well, the will of the people. The first nominee was the person that was, next in the vote count and very close to next. Nominated by a mayor who was clearly the selection of the people. It just seems so clear. And so I don't understand how this can be difficult. And I think that you will owe it to the people to explain if you don't select the person that the people voted as their choice for the empty seat, essentially. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. From citizen concerns, we'll move on to council member reports. I think we'll start with Dr. Schroeder.
All right, well, we had our strategy meeting on Saturday. That was, appreciate putting that on, and I appreciate the staff coming out for that and spending their Saturday with us. I know we're super fun to be around and everything, but I appreciate that they come out with us. Also, it's been really fun. Ty's let me put on my volunteer hat and try to work on some sound paneling for some of our rooms that are really echoey. So I get to be a little minion for a while and see if I can help out and save us some money there. When you get bids for those, they cost tens of thousands. And when you do them yourself, they cost ones of thousands. So we're going to look into that. And then, of course, this is something that would really be a council thing. I think it's something that Ty can decide, and he'll let me know what he would like to do as far as if anything I come up with is great. But I wanted to say how I've enjoyed working with him and Tristan. And I also appreciate that when they got that bid that was tens of thousands, probably, I don't even know, that they just didn't do it, because that would have been the easy thing. And even before I came along, Tristan had already been trying to find some ways to do it cheaper, and I just really appreciate kind of the mentality there that they were trying to go with, not just doing what was easy, because taking the first bid or whatever would have been the easy thing.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate your stepping up to help us with that. Councilwoman? Oh, thank you. Councilman?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I also attended the strategic planning meeting last Saturday, and I thought we had some good discussion with staff. And it was an informative experience. Also had the opportunity to attend the CCUA meeting on February 27th, and a couple of agenda items there on some things that we approved for the plant. But Councilmember Elsoff typically has a very thorough report on that, and so I'll let him cover that in more detail.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Elsoff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilman Smith. I guess I'll mention the strategic planning was really great. I thought that was really fruitful for us, so I was happy to attend that, and thank you for the staff for putting that on. Like Councilman Smith said, February 27th, we had the Chisholm Creek Utility Authority meet. That is the CCUA, so that's the management quasi-private, quasi-government body that manages our water delivery and sewage treatment. We had a number of topics that we hit on. We reviewed kind of a long-term maintenance project that's currently just kind of in work constantly. There were some new computers that were installed to help increase security, especially electronic and computer security is always a concern with utilities, because as things go, utilities kind of tend to lag behind with funds for such things like the computer systems and stuff. So it's really great to see that we're doing what we can to upgrade the systems there to keep our water going and keep our toilets flushing correctly. So it's neat to see that happening there. We adopted several plans. So we had an emergency water supply plan, a water conservation plan, and a water source protection plan. Those all kind of sound kind of similar, so I'll just give a brief summary of what those are. The emergency water supply plan, that's kind of self-explanatory. That's a plan that covers what to do in an emergency situation and the contingencies that we might need to undergo. The water conservation plan is how we optimize the current water sources we have access to, and to ensure that we're managing those resources as well as possible. And then the source water protection plan, that was provided by the Kansas Rural Water Association, and that is kind of an assessment of the groundwater supply and where the wells are, and the oil, or not the oil, but the water aquifers in relation to potential hazards, like if there's an industrial plant and there's waste seeping into the ground, how much risk is there when there's new construction. The source water protection plan helps kind of keep all those things on the table so that between Park City and Bel Aire, we don't inadvertently engage in some new project that suddenly causes a increased problem for our water supply. So that's the first time CCUA engaged in adopting the protection plan. So I think it's good to see that there's just kind of additional awareness of ultimately managing the risks to our water supply. So they're being the body there is being proactive in that. I think that's a really good thing. We repaired an influent pump. There's a couple of pumps that pump all the influent into the headworks of the sewage treatment plant. So there was a repair we had to do there, and then there was also the purchase of a variable drive for one of our wells in Bel Aire. These are kind of routine maintenance things. We've got a lot of wells between Bel Aire and Park City. We've got a lot of pumps, and there's just a lot of mechanical equipment that, every couple of months something somewhere breaks down and we got to go fix it. And so we're keeping everything running. Also, I just wanted to touch on, so we did receive engineering proposals from 4 engineering firms that submitted plans to the potential wastewater treatment plant upgrade that we'll be needing to undergo in the near future. So there was a preliminary review by representatives from both cities on those plans, and there was basically a unanimous determination landing on one particular firm. And in the months to come, there will be scheduling taking place with that engineering company to present their proposal, and that'll be something that'll be presented to each one of the cities. So we'll have an opportunity to have them share. I'd like to see them share with our utility advisory committee, the council, and obviously we'll try to make that something that's open to the public as well, where anyone that's curious about the plans there, that they can come and see that and interact with the representative there. So that's a little bit longer report than normal, but we had a lot of things. So that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Very thorough report. Appreciate the information. So, go on to the mayor's report, and I too attended the workshop on February 22nd, and I do appreciate the staff and the efforts towards that. I think we had a good discussion, and hopefully we'll be able to do some good things with that. I also, on February 20th, did a principal for a day at Northeast Magnet High School. I only did it for a half day. And I did meet with Mr. Priestman, the principal there. So we attended several classes. Mostly, these were pop in and pop out type of things, but it was fun to do. Spent the first 2 classes of the day. Thank you. Okay. No. Okay, thank you. Spent the first 2 classes of the day with government, senior government course. And they were working on a Constitution and what it takes to develop the Constitution. And they had each class had developed a Constitution from the class. So it was kind of interesting. They were mostly talking about student concerns and student issues, but it was an interesting exercise for them to do. And the principal got to respond to some of their concerns, which was put him in a little bit of a hot seat, but that's all right. That's what we all have to do from time to time. So, okay. Lots of talent at this school. They're great artists. Artwork is just unbelievable what they were able to do. Engineering, they're doing some fantastic projects in engineering, some great science projects going on there. So, really exciting place. This is really a gem of a school to have in Bel Aire. So, I was really honored to be able to do that. On February 29th, Saturday, I did attend the Legislative Public Forum at the Wichita Public Library. There's a lot of small topics, or 2 hot topics. One was the Senate Bill 294, which I think Council members are aware of, maybe some of the public isn't. But this is a bill that did pass the Senate that requires more transparency from the cities as far as taxes and what your property taxes will do. I'm not tell you my honest opinion about the bill. I think the transparency portion of it is good. The burden that they're putting on the cities is not good. And I think there might be better ways to be more transparent. So, but basically what that amounts to is if you got your tax assessments this last week, like I did, my property value went up quite a bit, which means I'm going to see quite a bit of an increase in property taxes, even if this council doesn't change the mill levy. Okay, and they want more transparency on that issue. That's fair. I can agree with that, but I think we need to find a smarter way of doing it than having to mail out to everybody a notice of, hey, your taxes may go up. So anyway, that is before the House of Representatives now, and I won't belabor on that any more than that. The other issue that was a hot topic, and there was actually I don't have really much of a comment, was the value in both constitutional amendment, which did fail the House of Representatives by 4 votes. So probably will come back up. But anyway, there was a lot of hot discussion about that issue too. But anyway, it was an interesting forum, and I was glad to attend. There were several other cities represented there. As far as I know, I was only from Bel Aire, but that's okay. I get it. Everybody's busy, and we have things we got to do, so that's fine. So I was happy to attend and represent the city there. So from there, we'll move on to city attorney's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to update the council on a couple of code enforcement activities that are going on. Some cross over to PD. We've seen an uptick in dog bites, domestic dog bites to other animals. So law enforcement and code enforcement asked me to remind everyone about the importance of fencing. Sometimes the invisible fences aren't working, so dogs are getting out. And generally, it can be unfortunate if someone checks their fence and their dog gets out and the dog bites another animal. Sometimes that can lead to a dangerous dog hearing, and unfortunately, a dog can be banned from Bel Aire. So we're seeing just an uptick in that. Also wanted to remind you about our code enforcement officer is doing some community education and sending letters to folks about parking recreational vehicles on residential properties, and just reminding everybody that there's a 24-hour limit for parking RVs, boats, jet skis, ATVs, trailers, etc. on streets, and a 72-hour period for parking in driveways. That enforcement is ongoing. However, they're trying to educate as many people as they can first. Also, the third item is that PD has been seeing some complaints about vehicles being improperly parked in driveways. So some neighborhoods have sidewalks, and those sidewalks are public right-of-way, so people can walk along those sidewalks. When a person who has a driveway with a sidewalk embedded in it parks in a way that interferes with people moving through that sidewalk, that's improper parking. And those matters are being enforced. It's complaint-driven. Because we're a small community and people can readily access PD and code enforcement, our departments see it as a quality of life issue. So they want people to kind of remember to pull in all the way to your driveway, or park in your garage, or park in a way that does not inhibit people from being able to use the sidewalk. That is a $35 ticket, and it's enforced through law enforcement, unlike fencing or other code matters that are enforced through our city code and may or may not have fines. There may be an abatement process. So wanted to remind you about that. As we are emphasizing that we are trying to handle code matters on a complaint-driven basis, you can contact our code enforcement office or go to the city website to complain about these quality of life issues. If it's a safety issue or a dog issue, even some of the parking issues can be reported to PD. And I would not say call 911 for these matters if we were in Wichita, but Chief asked me to let people know to call 911 because for a city of our size, it actually works to route PD to where they need to go and track the call. It works well with our process for people to call 911 for parking or dog or other issues that should be reported to PD. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Many years ago, I was a beneficiary of one of those parking tickets for parking in my own driveway across the sidewalk. So it's been a long time, and that's back when I lived in Midtown, which has been a few years ago. So thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And I wanted to thank you for your introduction to property taxes. So we've got I put together this, or Ted put this together for us, but everybody's getting their values and talking about property taxes and Bel Aire's high property taxes and things like that. So we just wanted to look at, well, where do we compare with other communities? Now, obviously we can't compare to Wichita because they have the economies of scale with 300,000 residents, so it can be much cheaper there. But when you look at surrounding cities, you'll see that Bel Aire is right in the middle. So you've got Valley Center, Mays, Hayesville, Andover, all higher than Bel Aire. You got Park City, Derby, or a couple mills lower, Mulvane's about 3 mills lower. So hopefully that makes the citizens outside of Wichita, those of us that live in the suburbs, realize that there is an added cost to our safety and the benefits that we enjoy not living in the city of Wichita. Also, I wanted to mention that you see that Bel Aire's 148 mills. Well, of that, the city only gets about 49 mills. So council can and has done a good job of keeping our mill levy the same, but the county gets a portion of that, 259 gets a portion of that, Sedgwick County Fire gets a portion of that. So if any of those entities decide to raise their taxes, then that would affect our citizens as well. So hopefully, again, I just wanted to show this, that as people are getting their property values, to know that Bel Aire's not the most expensive and have the highest taxes. And don't know if that'll help anybody feel better, but at least that's some data that everybody can look at. Last thing I wanted to mention was the Bel Aire Chambers meeting tomorrow here at City Hall at noon, so in case anybody's interested. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michael. Okay. So the next item is item 12 on the agenda, ordinances, resolution, and final actions. So on the issue of appointing a new council member, I have some comments and then we'll have a discussion. After our workshop on February 18th, it looked like we had a path forward to nominate and confirm a new council member. Since then, I learned that it does not appear to be the case. I can be wrong in my assessment of city council members, and in fact, I kind of hope I am wrong. So, in 2017 and 2019, we had back-to-back elections where every incumbent who had a campaigning challenger lost the election. That's a message from the citizens. I'll repeat that. That's a message from the citizens. They are not happy with those they voted out. They are looking for change. Each one of us who sits here today is a person the voters were hoping would usher in change. So let's do this. Let's change from being at a deadlock and settle this issue. I consulted with a political friend of mine and asked what they would do knowing the situation we have. Their first remark was the council was giving me a lot of power. But I'm not one seeking power. I am seeking solid solutions using an inclusive style. They also suggested that we bring other candidates, and that might be what we should do, but the problem is we would have to reopen the application process, which further delays the process. And I'm hoping we can solve this tonight. Another idea that politicians do when they see a deadlock is to go to the people. We just saw yesterday with Governor Kelly on the Medicaid expansion going to the people. So I did that very thing. I went to the people for their input. I asked that they let you know, and myself as well, that, and I think you have seen their responses. I did a short tally of those responses, and I will share them with you if you like. So we have some options here, and I'll list those. I'm not saying one's better than the other. They're just options, okay? We can nominate and confirm one of the two remaining candidates. We might be unwise nominating some other candidates. We can, on motion of council, reinstate a nomination that already failed, that being John Welsh or Ashley Markley, then vote on that nomination to confirm. We can open up the process for more applicants. We might get some. I know of some potential applicants. We can decide to leave the seat open until the 2021 election, almost 2 years away. And we can decide to hold a special election this year. I was not wanting to have to open a discussion of each applicant, as I believe that is bad form, but to a limited degree, it looks like that is what we need to do. So I'm opening this up to discussion. I'm not making a nomination yet. I hope the discussion will give us enough sense about who we will support, and if there's a consensus on an applicant, I will make that nomination. The feedback we got from citizens makes it clear they do not support former mayors and former city council members. So we can start by each member telling us who they will vote for. No need to tell us who they'll vote against, since that will be the ones that you don't mention. And maybe from there, we can start some discussion and come to consensus. If we're not willing to do this, I would ask that you tell us how you suggest we proceed. In the words of Albert Einstein, the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over, expecting different results. So we don't want you to do that. So are we okay with stating openly each council member's applicants that they support? Mine are John Welch and Ashley Markley. I will consider Andrew Allschmidt and Phil Sir if one of them is the consensus candidate. So it's open for discussion. How do you want to proceed?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Well, first, I want to thank everyone that took the time to contact the council on this as a result of the mayor's email. I got a huge number of emails and comments from citizens on this issue. In fact, I think this is the issue that I've received the most, email and comments on from citizens of any issue that's come before the council since I was elected. And so as I read those emails and I reflected on the comments in them and thought back to the discussion that we've had, and really I thought back to when I ran for council, I made a commitment to listen to the people and listen to what citizens had to say. As this process has evolved, and I've heard from so many citizens on this issue, combined with the results of the last election, I feel like I've heard the same thing overwhelmingly twice, and that the people want John Welch to fill this open seat. Given that, and that I feel that it's my duty to represent the will of the citizens and what the people of Bel Aire want, I don't think that I can vote for anyone except John Welch to fill this vacant council seat.
Mr. Mayor, when we started this process, I had vetted each candidate and told you who I was for. Now that we've gone on, I had kind of started out saying, hey, it's up to you. I'm okay with most of them, right? I had the concern of the former mayors as well, and that concern has been given to me by lots of people. So I had people emailing me, not even suggesting anyone, just saying it doesn't make any sense to have a former mayor on the seat. I mean, if I'm imagining being a new pastor and having the old pastor that got voted out working his way on the church board. I mean, I wouldn't even take the job. I mean, I wouldn't even do it. Denominations with any kind of authority over their churches wouldn't allow it. I mean, they would not allow it. I mean, we Baptists, we can do whatever we want, so we could do it. But church, so I think that I was always solid on that. But the other four, I told you, I'm okay with them. It's you make the nomination, I'll support you. You pick them. But as time has gone on, everyone keeps saying there was only one vote difference. I think if it were flipped between Diane and John, and Diane had lost by one vote, we would have the responsibility to put Diane on, because that is what the people wanted. And they not only spoke in the election, but with all the responses I've got, it's just been overwhelming, and it's kind of hard to say no. So I busted out the old spreadsheet in order to keep track of all the emails. And so there were 10 emails I got total. 4 of them specifically mentioned not a former mayor. 7 of them said they wanted John Welch, and then 1 of them specifically mentioned another candidate. And at some point, I know 10 isn't representative of the whole city, but you don't actually need that big of a sampling in order to kind of figure out the will of the people. And at some point, when can we just refuse to do what people want? I was for Welch at the beginning, and I was fine with him, and it's getting harder for me to say yes to other people because of the outcry. I'm not saying I wouldn't. I still think I might confirm other candidates if you thought they were appropriate, but man, it's getting really tough to support anyone else with based on the feedback I've gotten for the people.
I also got approximately 10 emails. Don't think they're the same 10 emails or the same 10 people, probably. I had very little input in my emails regarding who they wanted. Mostly they were telling me to do my job. It was my decision, but get it done. And I'm usually that kind of a person, so it kind of hurt me a little bit. I'm usually that way. It is a big decision. We had such a nice number of applicants. I don't think we want to go backwards and redo all of that kind of thing. But, quite frankly, I was one of the nay votes on Mr. Welch. and remember telling you that nothing had changed my mind at that point in time, but now it's kind of like, get somebody on here. I'm tired of listening to it. Sorry, I'm tired of listening to it. We've got other things that are way more important than whoever's rear end is in that chair.
Thank you. Councilman Eltoff, you were the only one that hasn't spoken yet. Of course, this is open to everyone to discuss. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mic's on. I guess I'll open by stating that 2 weeks ago when we had our workshop, at the end of the discussion, I think I made my position clear that on the remaining 4 candidates, I had no reason to vote against any of them. And I hope that was helpful in, as you put it, giving us a path forward. This process has been ongoing since February 4th, so it's been about 4 weeks. I received, I think, a couple of emails before Sunday. Sunday is when received about that. I think I received about 10. I don't know exactly how many it was, but it was about 10 emails, and that was kind of unusual to get that many. But I do think it's important for people to understand that those emails appeared to be, at least some of them appeared to be in response to, you mentioned you had contacted people or sent out an email to whoever you send your email to. I don't know who that is. Presumably it's people that have supported you. So it's not like cold turkey out of the blue, people started emailing. They appear to be in response to the email you sent out soliciting for input on the council. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. I don't know if that came across real clear in your remarks earlier. One of the most common themes that came across in the emails as a plurality was the statement, and we heard it from a resident that spoke earlier just tonight, that they felt like they didn't know enough of at least some of the candidates, either knew absolutely nothing about them or very little. And I think that's part of the problem with how we got to where we are here, because my understanding of this process is we had 6 candidates, and that's kind of that was like a new batch. We had six candidates to go through, and that's how I interpreted our policy to be engaged. I guess I'm just looking. I have I came with notes, so I'm just consulting my notes. I was curious about, there was a copy of the email that you sent, Mr. Mayor, and based on one of the emails, it looked like the subject heading to that email was need your input to break a deadlock on city council seat. So I was curious what changed, because at the end of the workshop, we came out of there, you acknowledged we had a path forward, and we had that discussion, and it sounded pretty good. So could you clarify what you thought changed between then and Sunday when you sent your email?
Well, without mentioning a council member, I did have a discussion with a council member who said they could not support those candidates that we had remaining. So that's
Okay.
what brought us back to not being able to move forward. So just to clarify, okay? So that's
Okay.
what it is, okay?
I guess I'm willing to move forward in this process. I guess that's all I have to say at the moment.
So what is the will of the council?
have a question for Jackie, if it would help. I read the Robert's Rule of Orders when I was in high school, and you can guess how well I remember it. If Diane, I don't think Justin and I can do anything regarding John Welch, but if Diane says, if this is what the people want, and I'm okay with it now, can she re-bring it up in some way, or is that that ship has sailed?
Okay, so we're going to do Robert's Rules light. Not light in the sense that we're going to take any alternative paths, but we're not going to dive too deep into some of the technical requirements that would be just not feasible with a group of 4. So let me back up. You're wanting to know if Councilmember Nguyen could
Bring back up the option of having John Welch be the appointee.
Okay, I wanted to be clear. Okay, so
Nominee, whatever.
the spirit of Robert's Rules for a motion to be reconsidered, someone from the opposing side must be a part of that motion. That's the central guiding principle for motions to be reconsidered. So if Mayor Benage wanted to ask the council to reconsider his nomination, it would be appropriate in this case if, I believe it was Councilmember Nguyen and Councilmember Elsoff were the prevailing voters when Mr. Welch did not get on or appointment was not approved. So if they would be part of the motion, I believe that's enough in this group to be able to reconsider the motion. That makes sense. So they would either be first or second to that motion. And then it would need to be, there would need to be 3 votes, of course. So,
Diane, if I made the motion, would you be interested in seconding it for John Welch so we can move on, or would you like to continue to have discussion?
I think I need more discussion.
Is anyone interested in considering some of the other paths forward? The mayor tried, and maybe we don't remember them all clearly, but he tried to bring some forward. So if the option of saying, well, the people spoke, they're not spoke election, but they've said a lot of things, so we're going to reconsider with John Welch. Remind us again, what's our other options?
Okay, so I listed 5 options. Ms. Kelly and I have discussed some of these previously. So I'm not going to tell you all the legal issues that I'm going to rely on her to be the expert on the legal issues, but we can nominate and confirm one of the remaining candidates. We can, on motion of the council, reinstate a nomination that already failed. We can open up the process for more applicants, but that delays things for however long, another month or 2. We can decide to leave the seat open until the 2021 election. I think that has to be done by motion. I don't think we can just leave it alone. Or we can decide to hold a special election this year. And if you did that, it probably would put that election about August 4th, unless we want to spend extra money, which I'm not sure we want to do that. But
So if it were an August 4th election, by the time they got on board, they would serve about
year and a half.
Year and a half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the seat is up for a re-election November of 2021. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, so the key challenge that I see with that, well, there's 2 things really. One is the term for that is so light, and the cost and the effort required to run for election is so high that I think the participation in that would be very light, and a burden on those who might consider it. And secondly, we just finished an election, and I think the voters have already made themselves clear in the last election. And so if we're valuing the input from an election, I would ask the council why we're not able to go back and look at the election that we just had, where we had a 3rd candidate who lost by 1 vote.
Either of you guys have just on that idea there, thoughts on that? Obviously, maybe we'll all be against a few of these options. There's quite a few options, or all 4, or whatever, yeah.
I guess I'll say that, I guess my first priority or my initial thought is consistent with where I've been. I think we should continue through the policy as written. The mayor shall appoint a nomination. I mean, I think we need to go through that cycle of the candidates before we do something different.
Even if the mayor is pretty much positive we're going to vote them all down, you think we should still do it?
Yeah, I think that's following the policy, and that's I think that's the most. I mean, we're doing this in the open forum here. I think that's what we need to do. That's been my position from the beginning.
Councilman Nguyen, what do you think about the another special election option? Or I suppose if the three of us were thrilled about it, I don't know if it takes all four of us to do a special election or not, but I suppose if the three of us were thrilled about it, we could. What do you think about it?
Well, I kind of agreed with you. You know, we stepped in here in the middle to try to fix something that wasn't really our fault. But I was surprised when you did not go through all of the nominations, because everywhere I've ever been, you know, in this type of a setting, or even watching from the other side, that if there were more nominations on a list somewhere, then the person in charge went through that whole list first to make sure that.
Well, we did have that discussion here a few weeks ago and talked about that, and that makes the mayor basically just doing the clerk work of saying, here's the list. I did not feel, and I still do not feel, that that's an appropriate way to go about this process, because it takes me really out of a decision-making role and puts me just in that processing a list role. And I don't think that's the right thing to do. The policy doesn't really say that. It says that I will nominate, and if it fails, I'll nominate a second one, and so on and so forth. But at some point, you got to say, well, wait a second. Am I allowed to stop making nominations? And it's pretty open on that and doesn't really say one way or the other. So I decided I would stop after the two, partly because I wasn't prepared to make any more. Now, I can make more tonight, but I don't want to do that and just go through another series of failures. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's right to the candidates, the applicants, and I don't think it's right for us as a council to do that.
So if we did go through them all, as Councilman Elshoff, and it seems like Councilwoman Nguyen suggests we go through them all, they all get told no, then what do we do?
Well, we don't know what the outcome is going to be, but yes, and I think that's the right and fair thing to do, because that's the process we have stepped into and engaged in. I walked in February 4th expecting. I came in prepared to vote on all 6 of the candidates. I thought the mayor will nominate the first one. If they vote in, fine. If it fails, the next one, I mean, as I read the policy, you go down the list until you either fill the seat or you exhaust the candidates. That's how I understood the policy to be implemented. I was surprised when that didn't happen, and we stopped after only 2. Now, if it's the mayor's position that he is going to hard stop and not go through the list of candidates, I guess I'm wondering, can we appeal to a higher authority to get some kind of rendering on interpreting our policy?
A special election would be the higher authority.
I'll
make it simple. I will not go any. I will not approve anyone but John Welch after what we've received from the people. So I don't know how, and I'll make that simple because I feel I'm obligated to do what the people are telling me to do, and the involved citizens of this city have spoken to me. And the next time I go door to door and I say, oh, I will listen to you, I don't think they should listen to me if I ignore them in this case. So we know that if we go through all four, they're going to all get voted down. So if you want to go through the exercise, I guess we can.
Yeah, I think that's where we're at. And as far as appealing to a higher authority, no, I'm not in favor of a special election. That'll cost the city a lot of money. But if that's something we do, so be it. We can have that discussion. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. As far as appealing to a higher authority, so, I mean, don't we have the possibility of, I mean, if we're in disagreement here, if I'm in disagreement with the mayor on how this policy is to be implemented, where my position is we need to go through that list of candidates, and when we get to the end, if that seat's still open at the end, then we can talk about changing the policy or other options. I'm fine with that, whatever that is. But if we have a disagreement amongst this body and the mayor over how we are supposed to go through our policy, can we have perhaps the district attorney review our policy and make a determination on how they interpret our policy? Or
Mr. Mayor? So if there is ever a policy issue, it's my job to review the policy, see how I interpret it, basically do what you're asking to do. And after having reviewed this policy, understanding the time frame that it was written, I am not comfortable with using the term nominate to mean read the list. I feel, or I understand the term nominate traditionally in legalese and having looked at it in Black's Law Dictionary to mean some sense of support, a credibility, that the mayor would be tying his credibility to that candidate. And so I just don't believe that the word nominate here is the right word if you wanted the mayor to read the list. Now, that is also confronted with the fact that the previous council who wrote this policy had issues and had a certain intent of wanting the mayor to somewhat read through candidates. However, it wasn't captured here, and it was never, the policy was changed after the last nomination they made. So that was never clearly put on the record. So I'm just not comfortable with saying the word nominate shall mean something less than it traditionally means. So if you're asking for your parliamentarian, which is me, to review the policy and give you feedback, I would say that if you want the term nominate to mean reading the list, I encourage you to amend your policy and vote on that and be clear on that, because as of now, it means to put the mayor's support behind a person and then ask the council to confirm that person. So.
Mr. Mayor, I might also add that I think what Councilmember Schroeder was trying to get at, that even if we were to go through that list of, the remaining list of candidates, I've already stated that I don't believe that I can support anyone other than John Welch based on the information and the feedback that's been given to me by the citizens. Now, Councilmember Schroeder has also said that to be true for him, and so we know that the remaining 4 candidates would fail the procedural process, even if we were to go through that.
all right, well, thank you, Jackie, for responding to that. I guess I still, personally, I don't interpret that way, but I will defer to your expertise in that area, so I will defer to the attorney's interpretation of that.
So we aren't going to nominate anyone else because we know the path. The mayor doesn't have to nominate anyone else. what would we like to do?
So let me ask, Ms. Kelly, is the procedure that I make a recommendation for a motion, is that the process, or do council members make that motion on their own?
You can always
on their
make a
own volition?
Sorry.
Do they make the motion on their own volition, or do I need to request that they make a motion?
I'm not clear on what motion you want, but you can always make a recommendation or ask for a motion. In our format, you can do that. Yes, you can make a recommendation, or you can wait for council to. You wouldn't be out of order by asking for a motion. If you're wanting to nominate somebody, you can do like you've done in other cases and lay out your basis for why you would want to nominate somebody.
Okay, thank you. Do we need to have more discussion, or are we ready to? Have everybody said what they feel they need to say? Sounds like everybody said what they feel they need to say, so I am going to request a motion to reinstate the nomination of John Welch.
Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion to reinstate the nomination of John Welch for City Council seat.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Just real quick. The word we're going to want for that motion, the best word, Mr. Mayor, is going to be to a motion to reconsider that motion. I'd say that would be.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to reconsider the motion to confirm Mayor Benage's appointment of John Welch to the vacant City Council seat.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
I will second the motion.
First and second. Do we have any additional discussion on reinstating the motion to nominate John Welch to the City Council?
Well, Mr. Mayor.
This is reinstating the motion. This is not voting on the reinstatement. Is that correct?
Oh.
This is to reconsider the motion.
Reconsider the motion, yes.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, we will have a separate vote on the actual nomination?
Correct, if the
following
motion
if the
to
motion-
reconsider.
So I theoretically could have seconded that because I thought I wasn't able to, but I theoretically could have. Or,
No,
Yes.
we needed.
Oh, you needed.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So I have first and second, any additional discussion on a motion to reconsider the nomination of Mr. Welch?
Well, I guess I just wanted to say that I seconded this because I think it's important to pursue the direction that you're showing for this council based on the conversation that we've had so far. So, and my understanding was you needed someone who opposed the previous one to join in on the second. So I think it's fair to get that second so that we can vote on that. I think that's the best right thing to do for this body.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Any other discussion? At that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The motion to reinstate or reconsider the motion to nominate John Welch is now on the table. So, do we have a motion to reconsider the nomination of John Welch to the City Council? Is that correctly stated?
So now the motion is
It's
just
just
to.
a normal one.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, I motion to confirm Mayor Benage's appointment of John Welch to the vacant City Council seat.
I will second, if it's allowed. Okay.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any additional discussion to the nomination of John Welch to the City Council seat?
Well, I guess, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say that I'm glad we're able to progress to to this point. Like I said, I deferred to our attorney as the expert on our policy. I don't intend to oppose this nomination. I think we're on a different track here based on our discussion and the plurality of the response from the people of Bel Aire. So I just want to say I don't intend to oppose this nomination.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say I think John Welch is a very good candidate. He worked very hard. He ran the election. The people wanted him. Another thing I appreciate of John, he's an independent thinker. You know, I argue with John more than once about a few things, and that's what we need on this council, not just people that are going to go along with everybody else. And I do appreciate that about him, even when I think he's wrong.
Well, I'll add my 2 cents in here too. I really don't know him very well. I've spoken to him a couple of times, but don't really know him all that well. It is not anything personal against him, but I'm going to say that he is not going to have a real comfortable nest up here. I hope he knows that, no matter what happens.
I think we all have that. But thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I think I've already shared my thoughts on Mr. Welch when this was discussed last time, but I do think it's appropriate that the council is respectful of the comments of the citizens and the input that they provided into this process, and so I think this is the right thing for the council to do, to reconsider this item.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor of the motion to confirm mayor's appointment of Mr. John Welch to the vacant city council seat, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Mr. Welch is confirmed to the city council. Thank you very much. The next item on here is an oath of office, but Mr. Welch is not present, so we won't be able to do that this evening. But I understand we can do that at any time, so if he wants to come to the workshop on Thursday, we could do that, or any other time.
That'll have to be during a meeting, won't it?
The oath of office?
Yeah.
I can't recall.
We'll look into that.
Okay, so just let me know. I will
Yep.
invite him to whenever is the appropriate time. So,
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And so, item 13, is there a need for an executive session? Hearing none, we won't go to executive session. So, discussions and future issues. We do have a city council workshop, the marketing interviews on Thursday, starting at 6:30 p.m. We'll be having a special workshop to conduct interviews with 4 companies interested in marketing land owned by Bel Aire Land Bank, and the Bel Aire Public Building Commission. We also, and it's not on here, but I'll mention it, there is a meeting tomorrow at 5:30 to discuss the Isley School traffic issue at St. James. And that is bringing in the stakeholders from USD 259, and the Homeowners Association, the developer of the area, Andrew Rees, Waste Connections. I think I'll probably forget somebody, but anyway, it's all stakeholders.
It actually may not be tomorrow. I haven't heard back from 259 yet if they've got their plans.
Really?
So I sent an email today and haven't heard back, so we may have it.
Please text me tomorrow.
Yes.
I will be in an email kind of blackout.
Okay.
That happens when I'm auditing, so.
So it may be Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, so
Next week,
please
so-
let us know
Yes.
as quickly as you can. Thank
Yep.
you. Okay. So then the regular council workshop is scheduled for March 10th, and it'll consist of street upgrades. MKEC will be here to discuss the Woodlawn expansion, and Stevens will present a list of road work that needs to be done. City and council priorities what street repairs will be made for 2020. 6:30 work for everyone for that on next Tuesday. Okay, very good. So, thank you. Any other things to discuss in the city council meeting?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn. Any second?
Second.
Second, first and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I'll oppose, same sign. We are adjourned. Okay, we need a land bank meeting. Is that correct? Land bank meeting? Is that-